focus on what's happening here. The Constitution, it's undergoing a major test at City Hall. Months of political intrigues and impeachment and swearing-in ceremonies have occasioned an epic clash between the law and politics. Let's also talk about the courts. They're inundated with petitions that are not only testing the limits of the law, but also the jurisprudential grounding of judges before whom these unprecedented developments are submitted for guidance. And to add to the ironies of this week, part of our interview earlier was on the Law Society of Kenya, who have had a rather animated, if not riotous session, unusual by all means for a professional association of lawyers. The LSK President Nelson Havi, still here with us, together with, he said for these purposes, he's a paid-up member of the Law Society of Kenya. We've removed the other title for now. Sifuna, is that correct? Okay.
You can also say former member of the Law Society of Kenya Council. Former
member of the Law Society of Kenya. We keep adding those titles. Mr. President, let me first start with you on this one again.
I was going to, you promised to give me opportunity to respond to the things
I want him to say one thing before you respond. I want to understand from him whether you are concerned about the image of the LSK tonight, Mr. President, especially when we refer to you as learned friends. Is that what learned friends, is that how they hash out their differences? What we saw yesterday?
Well, first and foremost, permit me to speak to the boys of Musingu High School and the people of Mulembe. Don't send me text that two sons of Mulembe are fighting on air. We're not fighting. Sifuna and I are learned friends. We have come here to enlighten you on the law. Don't send an ambulance to carry one of us. Well, with that said,
and
let me get back
so
to the
that
point.
Sifuna you've taken major time with that, so briefly so that Sifuna can come
Yes, let me get back to the point. There is nothing untoward on what is happening at the Law Society of Kenya. What you saw yesterday has happened time without number.
But should it be the norm? Are you justifying that as now acceptable behavior for learned friends?
Of course, part of what happened yesterday was unacceptable. But this is a democratic society where you have to allow people to exercise their rights in the manner in which they want to do. And I will repeat this. There is a misrepresentation that the entire council was suspended yesterday. Only 8 members were suspended because the motion to amend the initial motion to suspend by Harriet Mboche was not seconded and was defective. I dismissed it on the floor of the House, whereafter a vote was taken. So the council is intact, constituted of the 4 VAS. An election will be held on the 25th of March to fill the slot left by Roslyn Odede. And in the meantime, we continue serving. The glory of the Law Society has been regained. And the reason as to why you can see
diminished. Not its stature being diminished, which is what some say tonight.
Wahiga, you're not being civil. You see, when the president is speaking, you permit him to conclude his
No, but I am the host of the show. I am also allowed to interrupt, Mr. President.
Thank you. So the society has not lost its glory. There are upheavals, which I've indicated to you, are part and parcel of every democratic process.
Okay. Bwana Sifuna, you had some point to make.
I think you are seeing the demonstration of a problem here, that everywhere he goes, Havi insists on being treated and called Mr. President because it has gotten to his head. Even here, when it is clear that this is your house and your rules, he wants to impose on you his authority. Now, I want to respond to 2 things and start with the issue of violence. It is quite absurd for Havi to talk about violence. When we were elected to the LSK in 2016-2018, the Okero Council that haunts Havi to date, it's called the Oko LSK Council, we held almost 2 general meetings and maybe 1 special general meeting, and they're all peaceful. And there was only one reason, Wahiga, because the president of the LSK, then Okero, came in on a platform of giving back the voices of the members, especially as expressed during an AGM. Now, my brother has talked about the rules and the regulations governing meetings and powers. In fact, I have those rules and regulations in front of me. I will start and I will demonstrate where the problem is. Number 1, let us talk about how decisions in council are taken. If you look at regulation number 20 of the Law Society regulations, it says that a question arising during a meeting upon which a decision is required shall be decided by a majority votes of the council presence and voting. And then it says in sub-regulation 3 that it shall be decided by a vote of members present and voting by a show of hands. Now, Havi went to the same law school as me, I believe. And we were taught that you should read the law as is and not how you think it ought to be. The law is clear that in making decisions at the council, you take a vote and the majority will have its way. On the decision, for instance, to so-called expel or suspend or dismiss the CEO, Mercy Wambua, it is very clear and it is in writing that Havi was in the minority. If 8 members of the council have voted on something, you proceed in that manner. And then, when it comes to general meetings, because he has touched on the issue of general meetings, we have also regulations guiding how decision-making is to be undertaken at general meetings. First of all, we have the rules of debate, which he has referred to, and he claims, because Havi thinks he's bigger than everyone else. Even when the law says that the supreme organ of the society is the general meeting, Havi believes in his head that he's above the general meeting. You've heard him say that it is his prerogative to determine whatever it is happens at the general meeting. I want you to refer to rule number 82, that it requires that every issue on which a decision is required shall be decided in the first instance by a show of hands, when every member present in person shall be entitled to 1 vote. On the floor of the general meeting, we are all the same. I want to show you this notice that they send out for the SGM. This notice says very clearly that the meeting shall take place physically at Gitanga Road, and then via Zoom platform, which means that every person who logged in is taken to have been physically present at that meeting, and they had 1 vote. Then it goes on to say that unless a poll is directed by the president or demanded by at least 3 members, that is after the show of hands, all it takes, Maura, for a poll to be held at a general meeting is to be demanded by 3 members. He claims that there was 5 people who came to disrupt. In fact, everything we were saying is that
are you one of the 5 people he's referring to?
I don't know. Create a poll. Yesterday, I was assaulted. I was assaulted by people known to him. In fact, on the floor of the general meeting itself, he congratulated the people for doing a good job. He went further to tweet on his official Twitter handle that I was mishandled by what he called Jeshi ya Serikali. That is Havi for you. So when he sits here and talks about violence, I'm wondering, who is he talking about? And because I am not a shrill crybaby, you will not see me going to the DCI to report that I was assaulted, because I know the rough and tumble of politics. So I personally would want a situation where we follow the regulations. Havi wants to impose his will on council. He wants to impose his will on the membership, and yet the law is very clear that the membership at the general meeting is a supreme organ.
And your concern was that, one, those who joined virtually did not have their say.
Absolutely.
I just want you to briefly outline them for our viewers. You've given us a lengthy narrative. One, those who joined virtually did not have their say.
Correct.
Anything else?
Now, here is the thing to remember.
Yeah,
in few words.
Give him a chance, yes.
In few words, there are two types of resolutions that can be passed by members. There are special resolutions that require a special number of people to vote for it. For instance, the resolution to remove somebody as a council member under Section 22 of the Law Society of Kenya Act requires, just a minute, Maura, you said you'll give us time, requires 2/3 majority. So if there are 3,000 people logged online, on the platform, and he claims there were 400, but maybe there were 200 people at Gitanga Road. What is the number that you require, and how do you establish that that number has been reached? You require a poll. This is basic democracy, basics of democracy, yani democracy 101. If you cannot capture this and implement them, you are not a democrat. You are not somebody who can stand up in any platform and criticize people for not adhering to the rule of law or claiming that you're a democrat yourself.
Okay, thank you. Let me allow the president to respond before we move on, because we need to talk about Nairobi County as well, gentlemen.
Yeah, Wahiga, there are many people watching, including my mother, including my daughter. They do not understand what regulations are. We're not here to discuss regulations. The meeting that was held yesterday was closed. So I propose to address the issue that are germane. We start with the Nairobi County government. In my opinion,
you're not going to respond to anything that Sifuna has raised.
No, the meeting ended yesterday. We cannot
LSK, policy, rules and regulations yesterday.
Wahiga, the meeting of the Law Society ended yesterday. It will be a disservice to the people of Kenya who are watching news, so that they be enlightened on key matters of national importance, to continue the debate that was closed yesterday. It ended yesterday.
Did it end yesterday, though?
Yes.
The images that we saw today showed many Kenyans have questions about exactly what happened. I'm hoping...
Okay, for me, the debate ended. Wahiga, I propose we address the other issues that are outstanding.
Wahiga, for me, I propose to let the viewers know, because we have a responsibility as a body of lawyers, not only to ourselves as lawyers, but also to the public. You have raised very fundamental questions. And these are some of the institutions that Kenyans look up to protect the rule of law, constitutionalism, and, the other things. So what we are suggesting is this. You are the host of this show. You know how much time you have allocated for this discussion. If my learned friend is not comfortable discussing the law, he's running away from the law, because he knows that the truth of the matter is, if we hold up the law of Society of Kenya Act and the regulations here, Havi has no defense. He wants to run and start to politic, which of course you will allow me to also do. I can remove now my, my wig as a lawyer and my hood, so that we can now delve into politics. But we owe a responsibility to the public. I am sure Havi's mother knows the law. They say ignorance of the law is not a defense. There are people who expect the law society to perform its function, and the president cannot run away from a discussion of the law.
Let me find out if he's changed his mind. Have you changed your mind? Are you going to address it?
The president's decision on procedure, the SGM, is final. We ended the meeting yesterday.
Which is then what I want to ask you is this. You're always tweeting about how Kenyans must follow the law. What do you say to those who say in the LSK itself, Nelson Havi doesn't follow the laws there?
Well, we follow the law, and Wahiga, that's why I'm saying...
Was the law followed yesterday?
The issues that Sifuna is raising right now are issues of law that were addressed and settled at the SGM. I do not propose to engage with you on what the law is, because what Sifuna is saying is a matter that is solely within the purview of lawyers and which was settled by lawyers yesterday.
Will we see what we saw yesterday in future, Mr. President? You say it was settled.
Well,
does that mean that consensus was reached?
If the Okoa Brigade continues its disruption and we are headed towards the elections for the female member representative of the Law Society, we do not expect them to continue the manner in which they have been disrupting events and activities of the Law Society.
What is your standing with the LSK Council? We've heard that you're at loggerheads with them. Again, moving forward, we're taking this discussion forward. How do you intend to engage with them as the president?
Well, the 8 members were suspended by the members of the Law Society in an SGM yesterday. The ones who are outstanding do not have a problem. Members will elect one council member to represent the slot that has been left by Roslyn Odede, and we'll have an AGM in the month of March where members will decide what to do with the rest of the 8. The law is quite clear. Shall I take you to the law?
No, I think we're okay on that. Since you've said you would go further on this,
allow me to execute the brief that I had today, is to explain to Kenyans the problem with the Law Society of Kenya.
Briefly, because I do want to switch gears now.
Please, because I'm not in the same rush that Havi is to run away from the law. He ran on a platform of Brave New Bar. Where's the braveness today? It has run away from him. I want to address one issue.
Braveness is not synonymous
Just
to
one
madness.
word only. Please don't heckle me, Havi. You have refused to discuss the law. Wait for the politics where I can heckle as much as you can. Mwaura, I want to address the issue of the so-called suspension. Now, I have in front of me the motion that was filed. It was signed by around, I think there are 12 members. But for purposes of this debate, we can just call it the motion by Mbithi and Aoko Otieno. They have signed the motion. This motion, among other things, it sought about 9 resolutions. Now, the critical resolution here is resolution number 5, which sought to suspend the 8 council members, which are the majority, for the remainder of their term for deliberately going against established protocol in the running of a society. First of all, from a legal perspective, there is a problem with this motion because a motion to suspend a member of the council can only originate from council. That is in the law, which my brother doesn't want to discuss. You make a recommendation as council, then you bring it before the membership for them to make that decision. This motion came from members, which of course brings already problems. Number 2, there is a member of the society who complained that she had tried to log into the online system and had been unable to. So she literally ran to the society. She's called Roslyn Boshe. She moved an amendment to this motion that instead of only these 8, because of the disgraceful conduct by Havi and his vice president and all the members of the society that in fact all of them be sent packing. That motion is what this president put to a vote. And the videos are there, the witnesses are there. As it is right now, we are looking at a former president of the Law Society of Kenya, by operation of his the same knife that he brought to slaughter people was used to slaughter him yesterday, and his council. So as we speak right now, there is no council of the Law Society of Kenya. And if he is telling you that the matters ended yesterday at the AGM, I can guarantee you, Mwaura, that there are lawyers who want to redeem the image of this society. This is not the last you're going to hear of this matter. Many of us who fought during the Oko LSK were fighting because we wanted to give back power to the membership of this society.
Okay.
So we will be seeing you, Havi, in court with your resolutions, and we expect that you will respect the decision of your own AGM to suspend
Fair
you
enough.
And your
I want to see if he'll
members.
respond to that. If he won't, I still have a question for you.
Well, courts, High Court and the Court of Appeal have time without number made a decision that internal affairs of the Law Society should not be interfered with the court. But this brigade, the Okoa LSK brigade, have found a convenient judge who for the last 6 months has continuously made orders that have resulted in the stalemate that was unlocked yesterday. The SGM we had yesterday was conducted pursuant to a court order made by Justice James Rika on the 17th of December. We want to see who is this judge that is so interested in the affairs of the Law Society that will want to countermand decisions of the members of the Law Society. And there are remedial measures that are available to us. They cannot be threatening us time without number that will take you to court. We are lawyers. Our business is undertaken in court. We are not butchers, as I said yesterday. So bring it on. And we want to see this judge who is always willing, ready and able to give you orders.
What's surprising me?
What is her interest in the affairs of the Law Society?
What is surprising me is you're willing to cast aspersions on others, but when aspersions were cast on you by Sifuna, you're not willing to respond to them. So you want him to respond to what you've said.
No, I don't want him to respond. I'm
But
projecting
you-
a point to the audience. I'm projecting a point to the members of the Law Society who need to know that there is a judge who is ready, willing and able to continuously interfere with the affairs of the Law Society so that there is a dysfunction. Why the dysfunction? Because the executive is interested in clipping the wings of the Law Society, as it has done with SONU, as it's done with the National Council of Churches, as it's done with NAT, as it's done with KOTU. We will not permit that to happen. Not through interference in the internal affairs of the Law Society, not through the abuse of the court process.
So what we saw yesterday was what? Politics?
Yesterday was an event in which members of the Law Society were exercising their supreme authority. They were interfered and interrupted by 5 people. 5 people wanted to interrupt the business of 395 people attending the SGM physically. That is untenable, and we will not permit that in the Law Society.
It sounds like it's your way or the highway.
It actually
Mr.
is.
President. I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
I had 395 people supporting the cause we took yesterday physically. I had close to 3,500 people online supporting the cause we took yesterday. I was elected by a majority of close to 2,800 votes. Can that be my way?
I'm talking about this specific decision in regards to yesterday.
Yes.
No one questions who elected you.
I've
and so
posted the
forth.
numbers to you, compute them mathematically. Those are not unilateral decisions of Nelson Havi. Those are decisions of members of the Law Society. And we want the courts to respect decisions of members of the Law Society.
I think,
Sifuna, go
Mwaura,
ahead.
it is quite unfortunate some of the pronouncements that are coming from the former president, because he, as a former leader of the bar, surely should extend some
Okay,
respect.
I think until we can get clarification on that.
I voted, Mwaura,
think
you
just
were
call
not
him.
there. I
I
voted
agree,
to
I
send,
wasn't there.
I voted to
Absolutely.
send him home, and majority of the people voted to send him home. So I will address him the way I know him, because I'm a member of the society. Give me some leeway here. It is quite unfortunate.
I want you to address
even
him
if-
with respect.
even Kibaki is called the former president, he doesn't complain that it is disrespectful. If your term has been expired
Well,
by
you have
operation
your
of
answer
law,
as to what the
so
problem
just a
is
minute,
at the
please.
LSK. These people.
I want to speak uninterrupted the way that he spoke. First, let me say, he's my senior in law. it is very, very shameful for him to sit on a national TV station and attack a judge who is unnamed the way that he is doing. He knows as a lawyer that, in fact, if you have a problem with a judge, because he has said that somehow Oko LSK has domesticated a judge, he can always apply for recusal. There are so many judges in the High Court. He can find people that he finds he thinks are going to give him a fair hearing. Number two, Havi forgets that in a democratic process, once you win the election, you cannot come there and lord over us about how many numbers you have. You have to be president for everyone, Havi. This is basic democracy. I think I will refer you to a class in democracy. You represent everyone. It is not that you will not keep throwing as a number at you. Even the 10 people who did not vote for you, Havi, have a right to be heard by the President of the Law Society of Kenya. Those council members that you disregard, their combined vote, Havi, was more than the votes that you received. They also represent people. They were also elected by people. If you want to be a leader, and especially a leader of a professional organization, you must be open to other ideas. I want you to succeed because you are my brother. You are my senior-in-law. At one time in the AGM, you lied that I was your pupil. In fact, I was your boss, Havi, because you were acting for me when I was paying your checks. So don't be caught up in this thing because all this power is transient.
Is this what you wanted the audience to listen to?
Let me finish.
If this it is, then I may as well
Let me finish with one point.
Finish, please.
I may as well go home.
If he wants to leave, he can always leave. But these matters have to be debated. He's talking about a decision rendered by 395 people in a tent. In fact, those numbers are disputed. There were no more than 200 people in that tent because of COVID regulations. Number two, Havi will have to demonstrate that he got 2/3 majority, because that is the law. And the only way to get 2/3 majority, or to show that in fact 2/3 of the people present and voting, including the ones on the portal, was for you to take to the judge resolutions supported by numbers.
Edwin,
so
may I also educate you on some simple tenets of the law?
Please don't heckle me.
Affairs
finish
of
my point
the
the way I
society
allowed you
are
to
determined
speak.
by arbitration, not through the court
Please,
process.
let me just say what I want to say.
Briefly,
Havi.
please.
Please don't heckle me.
Now,
Please don't heckle.
I'm trying to school you in the law.
We need order. We need order in studio.
One thing only.
One thing then, so I can allow him to speak, please.
Havi did not put anything of the motions as required by law to a vote that included the people who were online. So he knows there's going to be a lot of difficulty. He knows it's a difficult conversation to have, and that is why he's running away.
Why should Kenyans be concerned about what happened yesterday in your view?
They should be concerned.
Picture, because right now it sounds like two members of a professional organization,
let me tell you why
the president and you arguing.
Why Kenyans need to be concerned. We are supposed to be guiding government, the judiciary, on upholding the rule of law, on constitutionalism. We must practice what we preach. It must start with us. If we are not able as a society to just respect simple regulations, when will we ever have the moral authority to stand and tell people that you have broken the law here? I have heard Havi talking about disobedience of court orders. He's coming here to lecture us about Nairobi and how things were not done properly. And yet he himself is unable to see the speck in his eye, the log in his eye, in fact. So what we are saying is it is sad because this is one of the institutions that Kenyans have traditionally looked up to provide leadership.
And I want him to answer that same question. Do you feel Kenyans, I'm sure many were concerned when they saw those videos circulating yesterday on WhatsApp. Why do you think they should be concerned about what's happening at the LSK?
Well, which are these Kenyans you're talking about that are concerned? The people who are concerned are you and Mr. Edwin Sifuna.
Well, there are many watching tonight. I'm getting their message. So they are concerned about the behavior of lawyers, learned friends.
Wahiga, when you invite me here to speak on matters concerning LSK, I've told you time without number. If you want the audience to be enriched, you don't bring somebody to heckle when I'm speaking. And if you do not want us to discuss the issues you formulated for this debate, then we better call off this debate. We cannot be discussing an SGM that was terminated yesterday upon concluding its business.
Okay.
Yes.
So you don't answer my question, the wider issue around the LSK and its significance in lawmaking in this country, constitutionalism, that's where I'm heading to.
The role of LSK is not in dispute. Can I enumerate for you what LSK has done for the last 11 months?
Please do.
We've gone to court to challenge the curfew so that the police do not violate the rights of Kenyans. We've gone to court to challenge the National Security Council Committee rules which are intended to curtail the rights of people to hold meetings, to strike. We have petitioned the Chief Justice to dissolve Parliament for failure to enact two-thirds gender rule. We have gone to court to challenge the installation of Anne Kananu as Deputy Governor of Nairobi with a view to designating her as governor and countermanding the electoral process that's supposed to be followed. If you do not see that, then there is nothing you will see that the Law Society has done for the last 11 months. As we speak right now, we are preparing an elaborate memorandum to enlighten Kenyans on the reason as to why they need to exercise their minds before taking a decision on the BBI and the Constitutional Amendment Initiative. All those activities I've enumerated, all those milestones are visible to everybody, be it a lawyer, be it the mamamboga, be it the engineer, and we've even gone further. We have expanded our constituency. We are talking to doctors, we're talking to engineers, we're talking to nurses, we're talking to pilots and teachers, we're talking to journalists, so that they have a stake, they have a voice. But what do I hear? The noise about dysfunction. This is the malaise that afflicts people of our age. We do not want to see things from the prism that brings change and development. And I want my very good friend here, I want you to enable the audience see the things that have to be done. Kenya has a big problem right now. And if we don't resolve those problems, the institution that is called the democratic space will crumble. And we want to utilize this precious time to address those issues.
And I want to get deeper into something that you've just mentioned, and I'll start with you, Mr. President, your interpretation of that handing over of instruments from the acting governor, Speaker of Nairobi County, Benson Mutura, to Anne Kananu Mwende. Let me get your thoughts on that.
It is a nullity ab initio. Why is it a nullity ab initio? Because under the Constitution, the only instance in which the Speaker can assume the role of acting governor is if there is a vacancy in the office of the governor and there is a vacancy in the office of the deputy governor. By the time Governor Sonko was being impeached on the 18th of December 2020, there was no deputy governor. And what is the constitutional consequence of the impeachment of the governor when there is no deputy in office? You go for a by-election. A by-election has been said. On what basis, logically or in law, can you support the action that has been taken? This is a coup upon the Constitution. If this continues, we'll not be surprised. They will wake up one day, pick a judge, swear him as the Chief Justice. They will wake up one day, pick an individual, swear him as the president. And it's for this reason that the Law Society of Kenya has gone to court and successfully obtained an order to hold the intended swearing in of Anne Kananu as governor of Nairobi. And the people of Nairobi must realize the danger that we are likely to fall into. The people of Kenya must apprehend the peril that is imminent. And who is behind this? Are key individuals who hold the highest responsibility of upholding the Constitution. The President of the Republic of Kenya, the former Prime Minister, they're angling to second somebody to deputize Anne Kananu as and when she's unlawfully installed as governor.
When you talk about the former Prime Minister, his Secretary General is sitting opposite from you.
No. I'm speaking about the Prime Minister because my learned colleague is here as a paid-up member of the Law Society and not as the Secretary General. I'm addressing Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga.
Okay.
What you're doing, Baba, is wrong. What you're doing, President Uhuru Kenyatta, is wrong. Allow the people of Nairobi to elect their governor in the manner provided by the Constitution.
Fair enough.
Nothing more, nothing less.
Okay, Sifuna, you sit here. I don't know which hat you want to wear right now. Are you going to switch to the other one?
I personally consider myself public property. I am here for the benefit of the public.
Okay.
I like Havi, who just a few minutes ago was telling us that, this debate does not benefit members of the public and we should leave it alone. This discussion is important for people to understand what is going on, because we are public property. I went to school, I was educated throughout using public resources. I went to public schools. Now, I want to take you back to one thing, then I will answer your question.
Briefly, because we are
on
now,
the roll,
now
yes,
moved on.
yes. Maura, I wish you gave me the same latitude that you're giving the former president. Section 4 of the Law Society of Kenya Act, which sets out the objects of a society. And here is the law. It says two important functions of the Law Society is to assist the government and the courts in matters relating to legislation, administration of justice, and the practice of law in Kenya.
To assist the government.
Yes. Number B, uphold the Constitution of Kenya and advance the rule of law and administration of justice. If we ourselves can get stuck at point B, we have no business advising anybody, including the government, about the Constitution of Kenya, advance of the rule of law, and administration of justice. The final one is to protect and assist the members of the public in Kenya in matters relating to or ancillary or incidental to the law. So we have a responsibility and duty to the public that Havi was trying to run away from. Now, to these matters that he is raising here.
And I do want to get your interpretation of the handing over of instruments.
Personally, I would like to hear from Havi what responsibility he assigns to the Right Honorable Raila Odinga in the handing over of instruments. Personally, as a lawyer, and as a former member of the Council of the Law Society of Kenya, I understand that interpretation of the law is something that people will never agree on. You have seen here, Havi will read the law the way he wants, I will read the law the way I understand it. Some lawyers like him will run away from the law, literally. The truth of the matter is that, number one, Mrs. Kananu was appointed by an elected governor. The problem I have with Sonko, and many people do, is that he never took his job seriously. All the time when he was sending these letters to the assembly, he actually was doing it as a joke. He never thought...
Okay, he's not here to respond to that.
You have asked me a question. I will explain.
I will ask you to tread carefully.
I will explain, Maura. You remember there was a time he proposed Miguna. You know that. He proposed some other names, and in fact, at some point, he put a Facebook poll, which Havi couldn't create for the election, to ask people to nominate a deputy, which is his job as a governor.
I'm hoping now, you'll eventually tell us what your interpretation is.
Please give me some leeway,
okay.
Maura. What we know is that once this name was submitted to the IEBC, the returning officer cleared Anne Mwenda essentially for vetting as deputy governor. At that particular position and point in time, the nominator has become functus officio. You cannot wake up one day and say, I withdraw it after the IEBC. Like today I was in Matungu. Our candidate has been cleared by the IEBC. Can I rise today and say that I have withdrawn that candidate? Now, we must also not run away from the fact that, in fact, the only thing that was stopping Anne Kananu from being vetted as a governor was actually an order of the court. So let us not pretend. I agree with Havi when he says that, in fact, from a legal standpoint, it presupposes that there are two vacancies in the office of the governor and the deputy by the time you are swearing in the president, the speaker to act. But the question then becomes, are we also aware of the reason why they had not vetted the deputy governor? As we speak here today, Havi, there was no single court order to stop the assembly either from impeaching Sonko, either the Senate from impeaching Sonko, either the assembly from vetting Kananu, either the assembly from actually approving Kananu. So what has happened, Maura? We might see things from a different perspective. I have a lot of respect for the Kenyan courts. We know that these matters are before the judges in the courts. Havi has filed another case that has essentially stopped the swearing in of Kananu as a substantive governor. And I must make it clear, it is Havi's case, because the Law Society has no resolution to that effect. So we will see. We will give opportunity for the courts to look at all these matters.
And as a learned mind, do you see Anne Kananu tonight as a governor designate?
Personally, I know that in law, for as long as somebody is a substantive deputy governor and there's a vacancy in the governor, she's the governor designate. That is the law.
Okay.
Yeah.
You honest?
Wahiga, the process of appointment of a deputy governor commences with the governor and terminates with the governor. An acting governor who is in that office, having ascended from the office of a speaker, does not have the power to appoint a deputy governor. And a question should be asked, and this is the question that should have been asked by the judge in the mask. I cannot identify who or she or who he or she was. you must ascertain that there is a signature under seal by the governor after the county assembly has completed the vetting process for you to sign and say you've sworn in this individual as deputy governor. There is a flaw yesterday. Sorry, there's a flaw in this. And yesterday at the SGM, a member rose, Mary Mungai, and said the Law Society must take action against the judicial officers who were involved in this nefarious act. And it cannot be an answer for you to say this, there is no court order. Will I say that there is no court order for me to dispossess you of your watch so I can take it? No. It is deemed that you will act within the confine of the law. And I do not want anybody to go blaming a judge like Justice Murima that he didn't make an order to stop the swearing in. The responsibility is upon the county assembly to ensure that they do the right thing. And that is the reason as to why we went to court, because the county assembly, when left to its own, did not do the right thing. Way forward, IBC must continue the preparations towards a by-election. And the people of Kenya must assert their authority. We should not be distracted from the path of democracy that we took when we promulgated this constitution on the 27th of August 2010. There can be no alternative to the law. If we disregard the law, as has been done right now, we will fall into anarchy. It is as simple as that, Wahiga.
Sifuna, what I'm trying to understand from
you have disregarded the law. You have disregarded the law at the LSK. Where do you find the strength?
Move on.
Where do you find
the strength? You need to learn the art of moving on and progressing.
Allow me to speak. Where do you get the strength to lecture people about observing the law? A simple statute, only one, and some simple regulations, not more than 100, you've been unable to follow. Then you can sit here and lecture people about following the law. You have no moral fiber to argue like that.
Sifuna,
the truth of the matter is, Wahiga.
Yes, and let me throw in my question.
Yes.
How can the law apply retroactively? How do you then move back to a point where the Constitution, the supreme law of the land, has already moved to the next step, where a speaker is sworn in? How do you then move in reverse?
Exactly.
The deputy governor takes over. Help us understand how you as a legal mind interpret that.
This is the concession that I made. That in fact there are certain absurdities. I started by conceding.
You see it as an absurdity.
Just a minute. Mwaura, please allow me to be your guest.
Allow me to interrupt when I need clarification as well. You asked the same for the president, so I think...
Allow me to be the guest.
Go ahead.
Now, I conceded that in fact, even from my own reading, by the time a speaker is being sworn as an acting governor, it presupposes in law that there are two vacancies, both in the office of the governor and in the office of the deputy governor. I have also told you that we cannot run away from the fact that there was a valid nomination of deputy governor and that in fact it was stopped by a court order. When I talk about the absence of court orders, I am referring to the fact that some of these issues had actually been already ventilated before a court of competent jurisdiction. We must allow the absurdities that we cannot resolve at a personal level because of the differences between his understanding of the law and mine, to be resolved by the institution that we have created as Kenyans to resolve these questions. So I know for a fact, and Havi should not even be talking about this matter, because he is the petitioner in the case that has been filed in court challenging this matter. So he knows that as a legal principle, we should not essentially be sitting here to discuss the merits. I have just given you my point of view. I am ready to cede my understanding of the law to a higher organ, which is the courts that have the competent jurisdiction to determine this matter. And by the way, Maura, nobody is afraid of a by-election in Nairobi. It is a fallacy that has been thrown around in certain circles. You have seen the president here repeat them, and I know that he represents certain factions in the political space in this country. I can tell you for a fact, Maura, that nobody is afraid of a by-election in Nairobi. If the courts decide that, in fact, we are going to have a by-election in Nairobi, we will be there to participate in that election. So nobody should sell the narrative that somehow we are afraid. We are not afraid of anything.
Gentlemen, we're getting so many SMSs here.
Yeah. Can I say something?
You can say something before I read some of the feedback we're
getting.
In
the intervening period between the 18th of December 2020 now, certain monies have been transferred from the accounts of the county government of Nairobi. Therein lies the problem.
Transferred?
Yes,
to
transferred to the Nairobi Metropolitan Service. You remember Governor Sonko was impeached on grounds inter alia that he had failed to release monies. Yet there was a court order suspending the Appropriation Act. What happened immediately after the Speaker was sworn in as governor? They moved colossal amounts of money. And this should be an issue of great concern to Kenyans, because NMS itself is an entity whose legal credibility cannot be found. Why is it being given monies that are intended to be utilized by officials of the county government duly elected? Therein lies the problem. It's not an issue of running away from the by-election. The intention was saddle the governor with criminal charges, okay? Proceed to impeach him even before the criminal charges are determined on grounds that are very sloppy. And then in the intervening period, designate the Speaker as the acting governor, have him permit the withdrawal of these monies, okay? Then look for ways around the law to sanitize the process. Therein lies the problem. And if it has happened for Nairobi County, it can happen in Mombasa, it can happen in Kiambu, it can happen in Kakamega, Bungoma. They will kill devolution. That is not what Kenyans wanted when they said we'll have a two-tier set of government, national government and devolved government. And governors, senators must come to the protection of devolution.
And yet
it's as simple as that.
And yet we know that Sonko did sit and sign over certain functions to the NMS.
Thank you.
Later on came and said
I hope
he was
you'll allow
mistaken.
me to...
But, I think some would say, doesn't that give the NMS the legal backing? But Sifuna, go ahead.
I hope you will allow me to come in at that particular point. I have noticed a pattern here that because Havi does not like to look in the mirror for the source of a problem, he's also refusing, even in this particular case, to look at the actual source of a problem. We all saw, it was actually live on TV, Havi, when Sonko went to State House and signed over the functions of government.
But Sonko said he was not,
just a minute.
He was not sober.
Just don't heckle, surely.
Go ahead.
I need your protection from this heckler, because we will not have a debate.
We have put social and all other distancing required. Go ahead.
Now, the problem is, we have 47 county governors. How come no other governor has decided that he's going to State House to sign over the functions? Personally, I have a lot of respect for Mike Sonko for one reason, because he was able to get way more votes than I personally received when I ran for Senate in Nairobi. It means he has been a certain capacity to convince people to vote for him. But we should not run away from his own shortcomings. He signed over the functions himself in broad daylight. He has come out later to claim that he was drunk. I mean, who makes such an admission, Havi? In fact, when you advise some of your clients, you should tell them to stay away from the media if they're going to say things like those. Number two, please don't heckle. But please, let me finish my point. You'll have opportunity to speak. Okay. This budget, the one that was signed over by Speaker Mutura, was actually passed by the Assembly of Nairobi. Now, I want to remind you, Havi, just the way I told you about your council, that these MCAs who are sitting in the County Assembly of Nairobi, the 85 of them from the 85 wards in Nairobi, were also elected. They are also representatives of the people. Because you see, the problem with you is just look at the head and you think that he's the alpha and omega. If the Assembly has been able to give its input on a bill and passed it, and that the remaining thing is a ceremonial role by the chief executive to just append his signature, the way you like to lecture the president about the appointment of judges, which is a ceremonial role, then really you cannot come and claim that the whole process is illegal because the person who signed over the money was an acting governor. I mean, the NMS is legally founded because they taught us the sections of the Constitution. I didn't even know that section existed. And then they say, no, everything is legal. We saw also Sonko signing. He has participated in the creation of that appropriation bill. It has been passed by representatives of the people in the Assembly, 85 of them. And then you want to come and claim it's illegal because it was signed by somebody in acting capacity? That's ridiculous.
Sifuna, I want us to get away from the nitty-gritties and look at the bigger picture. There are some who are concerned tonight that there are deliberate attempts to short-circuit or short-change the law, especially when it is convenient for them. Do you, as a paid-up member of the LSK, do you, as ODM Secretary General, see that concern in our country today?
It has not begun today, Wahiga, because we know, for instance, where I can now speak as the SG of ODM. ODM is a very proud party. We are proud of the fact that we are the ones who birthed this thing called devolution. From the period when we started implementing this new constitution, we have seen clear attempts to sabotage devolution at all levels. We have seen devolution of functions without money. We have seen the delays that we experience in disbursement of money. We have seen various attempts to actually interfere with devolution. We stand for the rule of law. We are saying that if you lay your bed, you must sleep in it, Maura. Sonko laid this bed. And you can see that he is the only governor out of the 47 who has done this. It's not as if the people who want to sabotage devolution only have interest in Nairobi. The other counties they have interest in. But the people they elected in Nairobi, you have to juxtapose the governor of Nairobi against the other governors and ask yourself, why only Sonko? Then there you will find the real reason why we're in this quagmire.
Mr. President, the only protection that ordinary Kenyans, voters, taxpayers have from their leaders is the law, the courts, and elections after every 5 years. Take those away, and they have no way in which they can keep their leaders accountable. What are your thoughts about where we are headed to as a country with the kind of discussion we're having tonight?
Exactly. You've enumerated them and punctuated them well. Elections, the law, and the courts. Elections were done. The law has not been complied with. What about the courts? Therein lies the problem. And my learned colleague alluded to it, said there is no obligation on the part of the president to swear in judges.
I didn't say that.
Now, Wahiga and the people of Kenya, there is a fundamental problem in any democratic state if the head of state does not see it as a problem to comply with the law and the constitution. These 41, one died, they are now 40, have been waiting in limbo, I will call it judicial purgatory, for the last 1.5 years. They do not know whether they are judges, they do not know whether they are lawyers. But more fundamental is this: the rule of law cannot be vindicated. The independence of the judiciary cannot be assured. And who are the individuals saying they want to amend the constitution? Who are the individuals that are saying they want to make Kenya a better country? They're the ones who have failed to swear in the judges. What guarantee do we have that when the JSC recommends to the president an individual, a man or a woman, to be Chief Justice, that he will swear that person in? We are in a conundrum. We are descending into anarchy. And I want the people who are advocating for constitutional change, people who are going to rallies every day, to stand up and tell us what is their position insofar as the swearing in of these 40 judges are concerned.
Okay.
They have not told us. Raila Odinga, just a minute,
okay.
I must
Finish.
conclude.
Sure.
And I'm not speaking to Sifuna. Raila Odinga has not told us anything. William Ruto has not told us anything. Kalonzo Musyoka has not told us anything. My uncle Musalia Mudavadi has not told us anything. What do you stand for? We cannot have a country where the President of the Republic of Kenya refuses to swear in judges. What if the judiciary were to refuse to swear in these governors, or to refuse to swear in these deputy governors? They must respect the law. However much noise they make, they're the ones who are enabling the current stalemate in the failure to swear in judges. This must be done. And I dare say, if the judges are not sworn in, the Judicial Service Commission should not appoint a Chief Justice. They should know, we should not even have a talk of a referendum. A referendum for what?
Okay.
Let the judges be sworn in first.
Sifuna, you wanted to come in. Go
Okay,
ahead.
you know, every time Havi talks about democracy, rule of law, elections, voting, accusing the president of all these things, I wish he would insert his name in all those things that he's saying. Havi, please, I will keep reminding you. You must see the log in your own eye. Number two, I don't know about the other leaders that he has talked about, including his uncle, but I can speak authoritatively for Raila Odinga, because Raila Odinga, through his party ODM, has spoken on this issue. We are the only party, Havi, in case you did not have time to listen to us, because you are blindly opposed to the process of the BBI, so that even the views that are coming, you don't have time to actually listen to them. Mwaura, when the ODM party appeared before the BBI committee at KICC, I was present as the Secretary General. I was there with my party chairman, the treasurer was there, high-ranking officials of the party. we are the only political party that proposed a mechanism to resolve the stalemate. Because Havi thinks that if he throws a tantrum at the LSK or threats at the president, he will achieve swearing in of the judges. We looked at this particular issue and we said, we understand the history of this matter. Number one, Kenyans wanted to move away from the old days where the presidency and the executive had some control in appointment of judges. So they proposed the Judicial Service Commission to come there. And sometimes we ask the people who are at Bomas, what is the reason that you retained this one point of a ceremonial role for the president to appoint? And the best explanation I've gotten is that it was just deference to his authority. So ODM proposed a self-executing mechanism similar to what we see with bills in parliament, that in the event that a bill is passed by the House and it is sent to the president for signature and that he doesn't assent to it after a certain period, say 14 days, it automatically executes itself. We propose that amendment to the Constitution in the BBI so that it is the biggest demonstration, Maura, that in fact when we go into discussions of the BBI, we are solving actual problems. And we wish the people who are opposed to this process would actually open their ears to listen to the proposals we are making. We cannot sit here to talk about independence of the judiciary when we are here attacking judges saying they have been pocketed by Okoa, LSK and the others. We must be at the forefront as lawyers, as members of the bar, as former members of the council like myself and Havi, to demonstrate faith in the institution of the judiciary. And this cannot happen if every time we come to platforms such as this, we are castigating judges and throwing aspersions. So we believe that we have proposed a way out of this. And I know this out of my own knowledge, Havi, because I was there when we made that proposal as ODM. You have tried to run away from documents here, but if you are willing, I will send you the document that was presented by ODM to the BBI committee, including that proposal on the self-executing mechanism.
Gentlemen, I want to allow you both to catch your breath as I read so many messages that I've gotten. I can't go through all of them, and I think we'll also be posting some tweets when we can. John Buddy, Chairman ODM, says, the same way Sonko is not there to defend himself, so is Raila and the president. Challenging you.
Challenging you. You defended Sonko. You didn't defend Raila.
No, it's not about defending. It's about talking about people who are not here, and I did caution.
But did you caution when it was Raila?
You responded before I even got a chance to. You actually jumped in. Bwana Sifuna. Steve Ogola, advocate, says, I disagree with Sifuna on the law. Anwenda was not the substantive deputy governor when Sonko was impeached. That is why Speaker Mutura was sworn in. The Constitution is clear that once the Speaker is sworn in to act, by-election is inevitable. And Mwenda cannot be governor through the back door. Again, legal minds sometimes can confuse the rest who are not. Let me read another one here. Someone is asking, is the LSK president concerned that the ugly meeting we saw yesterday would destroy his image and that of the LSK? Please ask him to respond to that. Let me see. Fred Obachi Matoka, I'm sure both of you know him, have listened to him over the years, says, whatever differences these two young men have, I want to commend their orderly way of presenting their argument. Okay, the president is applauding that.
It shouldn't be something you applaud.
What Sifuna thinks.
You're a lawyer.
And someone else here saying, just hang on. What is Havi's view on the proposal in BBI to resolve the 2/3 gender issue? And what became of Occupy Parliament? Somebody wants to know that. And I think we have some we're going to put on the screen. Let's go through one or two. Then I'll give each of my guests a chance to respond to them. Okay, first one here. Atuoli, if this the legitimate account? Okay. Atuoli is asking, if Nelson Havi has failed to manage his affairs as the president of LSK, Havi, okay, you're laughing at that. He should not drag serious organizations like KOTU to make a point. KOTU is under a stable, focused, and sober leadership. LSK is crying for leadership. There is a vacuum. Francis Atuoli there, Secretary General, KOTU. Direct response to your comment. George Washira says, all law teaching schools must be required to have a mandatory course for all year students on, and I quote, astute behavior required of a lawyer in public and in private at all times, day and night, to be taught by the likes of Dr. Haminwa, James Orengo, amongst others. Okay, it's a suggestion there. I don't know whether that's something that could be included in the curriculum. Frederick Okango, a lawyer with the Third Way Alliance, a lawyer will do anything to win a case. Sometimes he will even tell the truth. Edwin Sifuna and Nelson Havi are now telling Kenyans the truth. All right, that's gotten an applause there from President Havi. Nyantike Chester says, I'm not a lawyer, but truth be told, Law Society of Kenya was a serious and reputable body under the reigns of Haminwa, Moite, Kamau Kuria, Gibson Kamau Kuria rather, amongst others. All right, that's your view. Orutwa Sam says, the successful, I guess, application of the law needs a positive attitude from both lawyers and politicians because the making of the laws is their combined efforts. Let's take maybe one more. I know there are so many. We can't go through all of them. Seth Kisa Law. The president of the Law Society of Kenya should represent and listen to all LSK members, not just those who support him. I support him on certain issues, while I also have issues with his approach on others. Now, President, let me start with you. You've been asked a couple of questions. Talk to us about Occupy Parliament. Talk to us about the proposal to resolve the two-third gender stalemate in the BBI as well.
Well, I will start with the image.
And the image, of course.
Of course, I'll start with that. When I was asking for votes, I went to the offices of one prominent lawyer in this country called Guy Spencer Alms. He told me, Nelson, I will vote for you. I will ask my entire office to vote for you on one condition. You must clean the stables, even if it means diverting the river to Gitanga Road. You see, the art and the mechanics of cleaning the stables, if you've read the Herculean task story, it's not a love affair. People will be offended when you want to question them on the whereabouts of your money. People will be offended when you ask them, why don't we have proper governance structures? What is my legacy? I've said time without number. I'm a wartime president of the Law Society of Kenya. I'm not here for peace. I'm here to make things straight.
You're a wartime president.
I'm a wartime president like King David.
So we are in war right now.
We are in war, and the war must be fought. Those who stole money from LSK must account. Those who want to use LSK as a stepping stone to enhance their profile must fail to get that opportunity. After I've left, the Law Society will be okay. I'll have set a good platform for my successor to serve members of the Law Society in a conducive atmosphere. What is my view about the two-third gender rule?
And the proposal in the BBI?
You cannot comply with a constitutional provision by seeking to amend the Constitution. An advisory has already been made that Parliament be dissolved. Parliament ought to be dissolved. Why has Parliament not been dissolved? Why haven't we occupied Parliament? Because Parliament and the Attorney General have gone to court and obtained an order suspending the implementation of the advisory by Chief Justice Emeritus David Kanani Maraga. If the court rules in favor of the decision made by Justice Maraga, then Parliament will have to be dissolved and will go to Parliament like a river and kick out those members of Parliament. If the court rules otherwise, then we'll abide by the law. What was the last question?
And it was Occupy Parliament, it was BBI, it was about the image of the LSK, and it was about Anne Kananu Mwenda also had, there was a comment from Steve Ogola as well.
Steve Ogola, a very eminent scholar, has spoken very well. What has been done in Nairobi County is a nullity. Let me address the issue that was raised by my colleague, I can't remember his name. He said, Havi must listen and serve all people. I'm listening and serving all people. In fact, let me tell you, colleagues, I've set aside my practice because every day I attend to members' interest, either individually or jointly.
Do you listen to those who don't agree with you?
Yes, I listen.
That was his issue.
I listen a lot to those who don't agree with me. But you must take into account one thing, Wahiga. No leader was distinguished as impactful, but for he or she whose actions were always criticized. If I was a lukewarm president, you wouldn't hear what we're hearing right now. But because my hands are handling so many things, it is natural that I'll embrace those who feel uncomfortable. It's the natural reaction when you have a Herculean task of cleaning the stables. But the stables must verily be cleaned. They will be cleaned.
And you have no regrets?
And so help me God.
I was going to say, you have no regrets about this?
No regrets. Let them cry. You know, this enterprise is not a love affair. People will cry, but it must be done.
It must be done. Sifuna has been nodding for the better part of the last 5 minutes. Please respond to what Steve Ogolla has challenged your legal interpretation.
Maura, allow me to be the guest. First of all,
but allow me to ask the question.
No, please.
Sifuna,
let me respond to what he has raised here.
Okay.
I will come to your question. Nobody is interested in a love affair with him. We don't have to be friends, Havi. We are saying you can clean the stables and you will find many people to
Mwalimu Kokonya taught you English and
Please
literature.
don't heckle. Please don't
You need to understand where examples are given and satire is applied.
Protect me from the former president.
He has stopped.
Please.
Go ahead.
When you want to clean the stables, Havi, you will find a lot of support if you clean the stables within the law. Follow the law. Follow what the Constitution say. Follow what the constituting documents of your own organization say. If it says that you take a vote at a meeting, you take a vote. If you say, by the way, Havi, you will be very surprised that in fact, probably, you had more people supporting you than were against you.
I know.
But you never allowed a vote to take place. That's what I'm saying.
The leader weighs the mood.
Please, Havi, don't heckle me for the 100th.
But you keep on calling me. What do you want to do? Don't call my name.
Saying, because we are here with you.
Okay,
and I consider you my brother.
Fine, go on.
I am saying that the language you are speaking is the language of a dictator. There is no difference between you and what Museveni says. Museveni could have very well won this election if he had followed the rules and the law. But we will support cleaning of the stables. All of us want cleaning of the stables. The language where people say that I know best, that I can ignore the rules, that it will be painful, but that I am the one who knows best is the language of a dictator, which is why I christened him Museveni and Mobutu.
Okay,
number two,
leaders here on the program.
Maura, please don't be inviting me here if you will not allow me to make
No, but I must control this program.
Number two, on the two-thirds
that's why you come on, because there is control.
On the two-thirds gender rule, on the two-thirds gender rule, it is not enough for you to criticize other people's proposals. As I have read to you here, the mandate of the Law Society is to also protect and assist members of the public in Kenya in matters relating to the law. We have a responsibility as a society to propose solutions to our problems. When you ask why his Tea Party failed, it is because he has no support. He cannot occupy parliament by himself. When he says the river will go to parliament, which river? Even Isiokhu itself in Kakamega, which you know, me and you know very well. Havi, your river is all the size of Isiokhu. So even if you threaten here that you will occupy parliament, we all know that we will set a trap of tea and mandazi there and the thing will be dead. Number three, so look at us as ODM. What have we done? Maura, this issue of the two-thirds gender rule is not unique to Kenya. We have seen other jurisdictions, and we can always learn from other people what they have done. As ODM, we had proposed a proportionate representation system where we don't vote directly for somebody as a candidate. For instance, in the 17 constituencies in Nairobi, you give a list of 17 people who will be elected as members for as long as your party gets 100% of the vote. And that list acquires the so-called zebra nature, where you have a man first or a woman first and then followed by a man in the alternate gender like that until you get to number 17. Then you go to the polls and you have Havi's UDA and my ODM going to the polls and he gets 10% of the vote in Nairobi, I have 90%. It means I take 90% of the seats. Once parliament is constituted, it finds itself gender balanced. So that proposal is in the document that ODM gave. We have given proposals. That proposal, we were not able to convince everyone that is what works for us. But we got halfway because we were able to receive views from other people and they said, what we can have is a mixed member proportionate representation. And we believe if we pass the BBI as is, we will be able to hit the gender rule because we are about providing solutions. Don't just make noise so that you get an opportunity to be invited for tea.
You never responded to Steve Ogolla's question.
I can come to his question. As I told you, in matters of legal interpretation, especially in this very unique circumstance of Nairobi, I want to agree that there are differences of interpretation. Steve Ogolla is a lawyer that I respect. He must also respect the way that I am reading the law.
Do you have a concern with that? No, I'm picking up. I'm not countering what you're saying, Bwana Sifuna. I'm asking whether it concerns you, these differences of interpretation.
No, it doesn't concern me because we have freedom of conscience and thought. I cannot come into your head to influence your point of view or how you perceive things.
So where does
this
the buck
is why
stop?
we are unique human beings. We are individuals.
Where does the buck stop?
That's why I'm saying, that's what I'm coming to, if you will let me. I am telling you that All our interpretations will now find a place where they are adjudicated upon, and we as Kenyans have given that authority to the institution of the judiciary. These matters are before the court. Once the court gives us a proper interpretation, that will become the law, and the legal position will be unified. You will not hear us, casting aspersions on judges the way we have had here. We will take the decision of the High Court because it is the body mandated to interpret constitutional provisions.
Gentlemen, the curfew is on. We do need to wrap this up. I want to give you a chance to give us each your final thoughts. Someone asking, do you believe there'll be a by-election in Nairobi? Please respond to that. And finally, where would you rate the state of adherence to law in this country today? If a foreigner was to come in and speak to you, either as the LSK president or you as a paid-up member of the LSK,
thank you,
what would you tell them is the state of adherence to the law in the country today as we speak? And I'll start with you, Mr. President.
Well, permit
so two questions in one.
Yeah, permit me before I close to say that I don't know whether Sifuna has finished the community service punishment that he was serving after insulting Aisha Jumwa. But anyway, fine. Let me get back to the point. The state of the adherence to rule of law and constitutionalism in Kenya is deplorable. It's deplorable for this reason, because those in power find the constitution and the law as an inconvenience. And what do? They demand observance by the people, and they act in wanton disregard of the same laws. That is a recipe for anarchy. There are many foreigners who have asked, will I get justice if I have a complaint before court where the other party with the government? I've told them without blinking, you won't get justice.
Okay, I'm told we have a challenge with your microphone. Just hang on, Mr. President. As we sort that out, let me allow you to give your final word. I'll come back to you, President, for that.
Yeah, that's two questions.
Yes.
The first one was adherence to the law.
Adherence to the law, where would you rate us as a country? It's the premise of why we've called you both here today, law versus politics.
I want
Secondly,
to agree.
Will there be a by-election in Nairobi?
I want to agree with Havi that if you look at the history of this country in the recent past, even going back to, say, 10 years back, it is true that adherence to the rule of law is at its lowest. Because even in the first time, he talks about court orders right now. We as ODM have been protesting disobedience of court orders from the start. There's a case that we did with Havi, of our friend Miguna, where I think we obtained almost 13 court orders. And all of them, were they 13 or 15? All of them were disobeyed. So I would rank the rule of law to be extremely low. And sadly, I will start at my own society as a Law Society of Kenya, that we do not respect the law. Our former president does not respect the rules. He is a god unto himself. He is a dictator. It is his way or the highway. Number two, on the question of whether there will be a by-election, I will repeat again. That is not for me sitting here to say. This matter is before the court. The manner or the question of propriety of impeachment of Sonko, the assumption of office of Ann Kananu, all those matters are before the court. And because I am a lawyer, I want to extend the respect and uphold the dignity of our courts to be able to resolve these questions in a manner that will leave everybody satisfied.
Okay, we take that as your last word. I think, President, we have your microphone sorted now.
You had asked the question as to whether there will be a by-election in Nairobi.
But you are answering adherence to the law, where we are as a country, and you are giving an example, I think, of a foreigner who's asked
I gave an example of many foreign justice seekers who ask whether they will get justice in the courts in Kenya, especially when the party on the other side is the government. I've told them, no, you will not get justice. Because where the government has a stake, they will manipulate the process, they will compromise the judicial officer, they will coerce the judicial officer, you are least likely to get justice. But
some would say they'll use your members.
Just a minute, Wahiga. But I must acknowledge the gallant efforts of many judges who have heeded to the call by Justice Maraga, that if they fail to do the right thing, God and Kenyans will blame them. There are many judges who do the right thing. And I want to encourage the judges who will be handling the matter concerning Nairobi County to do the right thing. As the Law Society of Kenya will be here to ensure that you are protected. Forget about the lamentations by people like Sifuna, who keep on referring to me as former president. I'm not a former president. My term lapses on the 24th of March, 2021, the year of our Lord. And for as long as the Lord gives me the energy, the wisdom to protect the independence of the judiciary, I will ensure that the judges who do the correct thing are protected, and the judges who do the wrong thing are held accountable. The scales of justice must balance. And I'm not saying this as a threat. I'm the first person who took a judge to the Judicial Service Commission post-promulgation of the 2010 Constitution and had the judge removed for corruption. I'm prepared to do that, however painful it takes.
As you point a finger at government tonight over adherence to court orders, the rule of law, etc., some would say, point that same finger at the legal fraternity that you lead as the president. But they have played a substantial role in deviation from the rule of law in this country. What responsibility do you take tonight?
Yes,
President?
I agree, and I take responsibility because corruption cannot be facilitated through the court corridors without the active participation of a judge, a magistrate, and an advocate. And we've taken a firm position at the Law Society that will not tolerate corruption on the part of our advocates. If we have any evidence that an advocate is complicit in the bribery of a judge, in the subversion of the rule of law, we'll take disciplinary measures against that advocate. It is important that the people of Kenya have satisfaction that when they entrust upon us a court case, either as an advocate, a judge, or a magistrate, that will do the right thing. Let's do the right thing. Let's do what Justice David Kenani Maraga has been doing for the last 4 years. He has demonstrated to us that you can do the right thing and walk away with your head up. And I want us to do that. So in particular, so far as Nairobi County is concerned, let the judges do the right thing and enable a by-election to be undertaken. It's not in the realm of the conjecture. We cannot shy away from commenting on the law. Our business is to talk about the law. That's the only gossip we undertake.
That is the only gossip you undertake.
Exactly.
And that is where we wrap up this discussion. Gentlemen, thank you so much. We've had a paid-up member of the LSK who also doubles as the Secretary General of ODM, Edwin Sifuna. Thank you for finding time to be here with us. And together with the President of the LSK, Nelson Havi.
You didn't bring me tea. This is deplorable.
Nobody was trying to corrupt you here, Havi.
Thank you.
COVID protocols
I'm
also
satisfied.
mean that we can't. And I'm told ththese two are also very good friends away.
We are. Do you want us to hug?
No, COVID protocols again. We will have none of that. Thank you so much. Hold on, Bwana Sifuna. You're walking in front of the camera where I'm trying to wrap up this program.
Yeah, he's always that belligerent.
Okay, I'm going to use this one. Thank you so much for having tuned in to Newsnight. We don't have time to read all your feedback, but thank you for tuning in. On behalf of the whole team that's made tonight's show possible, asante sana, have a good night, stay safe, obey the law. That's the last word from this interview tonight. The hashtag has been Newsnight, SMS line 22422. And our sign language interpreter is Yula Nzale. Stay safe. Have a good night. Remember, tomorrow, big coverage, Biden-Harris inauguration. You don't want to miss Citizen TV's coverage from 6 in the morning all the way until that change of leadership in the United States. We'll have it all for you here on Citizen TV. My name is Wahiga Mwaura. Have a good night.